And coming up next is Corvus, aka Bronwen, with Making Your Own Private LLM.
Now I have to adjust this so that it will work for me, and of course, isn't technology supposed to make our lives easier? Lies, lies, damn lies. Ugh. And of course, my timer insists on resetting itself back to 5 minutes. No, I'm going to be talking for longer than 5 minutes. Get over your damn self. And there we go. Hi. My name is Bronwen Corvus, the Cybrarian, short stuff. I have a lot of different personas. But today's topic, keeping things local, setting up a local LLM, it's not as hard as you might think it is. Some of the things we're going to explore, you and me, in this next hour. A brief overview of AI and LLMs. I apologize if a lot of this may be fundamental, but I like to have context, especially for people who have only heard hype about it and haven't gotten some of the background fundamentals. Now, why would you want to keep an LLM local? There are a lot of reasons. Primarily, it's going to be security, ethical concerns, privacy, and customization. There are a lot of local LLM options, and it's wonderful to see how many options there are, because if you love rocking a command line, there are lots of CLI versions and tools available. If you are more comfortable with a GUI, there are some wonderful things you can go there. This is one of those fields where you can go as deeply down the rabbit hole as your desire and abilities will allow you to do. There are lots of ways to enhance your LLM. And of course, what would a technical talk be without demos, right? Woohoo! So, why should you care about what I have to say? Well, like I said, hi, Bronwen, been here around for a while. I've reached that point of my life where it's embarrassing to talk about how long I've been doing development and tech stuff. In addition to doing lots of development, hello, there we go. I have done a lot of technical training over the years. Then in 2017, I said, gee, I'm burned out and bored. I'm going to switch careers. And what did I do? I went into cybersecurity. What the heck was I thinking? But honestly, it's been a wonderful ride. And for the last 6.5 years, I've worked for this company called Black Hills Information Security. First as a 1099, thank you, and now as a full-timer. My primary area of responsibility is still doing technical edits on pen testing reports. I recently did crunch some numbers, and I estimate that in the last 6.5 years, I have read, co-authored, or in some way touched somewhere between 12 and 1,500 different pen test reports. So, been doing that. My latest tech obsession is AI research. And the bottom line, of course, is I'm a geek. I've been around the block more than twice, and I've seen a lot of natural fertilizer. Full disclosure, this presentation was created using AI tools like ChatGPT, Copilot, DALL-E, and Midjourney. They were at all times under adult supervision, the caveat being that you assume or consider me to be an adult. So, what is AI? AI stands for artificial intelligence. It is actually, AI is a huge, vast, it's so enormously huge, you just won't believe how huge it is. Field in computer science that has to do with creating systems and tools that emulate human intelligence, simulate and emulate human intelligence. So it's not intelligent in itself, not yet anyway, but it simulates human intelligence for performing a lot of different kinds of tasks. So AI includes robotics. It includes computer vision. Computer vision helps with optical character recognition, OCR. It has to do with facial recognition. It has to do with recognizing your license plates when you blow through that stoplight. Okay? More recently, there have been huge advances in natural language processing, or LNP. That is having to do with helping computers understand, interpret, and generate human language. Because remember, computers, they operate with bits, bytes, and nibbles. They do not speak human unless we teach them. And neural language programming is what we do these days to have more in-depth conversations. And then there are expert systems. They know this much instead of this much, but they're really good at this narrow area that they're in. Where do LLMs fit into AI? They are a subset of generative AI. They are text-based. Let me repeat that. Large language models only deal with text. So if you go to something like ChatGPT or Copilot and you type something in and it makes a pretty picture of cats, then that is a multimodal model. More than one mode, does more than one things. It walks and chews gum, maybe at the same time, but probably not. LLMs are probabilistic. Wonderful polysyllable. Probabilistic. In English, that means that everything LLMs do uses probabilities. It's very much like the autocomplete that you will see in your shopping cart, Netflix, whatever. You may or may not have understood that that was AI, but that is what it is. And current models that are used for LLMs are trained on massive data sets, scraped from the internet mostly, and also stolen from proprietary content that has been illegally scanned. But of course, the current administration is basically giving all the AI companies a pass, but that's another conversation for another time. Hit me up after the talk. Most of your LLMs are going to be general purpose, but there are a lot of really nice expert-focused LLMs for doing things like code or coding in a specific language. A little bit more about that later. And it is easy access to chatbots, basically, that has popularized AI. So just as the web, when the web was invented at the end of the 1980s, beginning of the 1990s, depending on who you ask, that made the internet go mainstream. LLMs, chatbots are now making artificial intelligence and data science much more mainstream and in the general society consciousness. All right. Why go local? I said, of course, privacy and security. When you have a local LLM set up, no data leaves your machine, your network, your internet, whatever. You have the ability to keep it boxed. And that means that your sensitive files, data, conversations, whatever, remain under your control. Customization is also another wonderful, wonderful aspect of keeping things local, because you can fine-tune an LLM for your needs. You can give it its own persona. You can feed it data that is relevant and meaningful for whatever your sphere of influence is. And that may be creating custom models. It may be using other things. By the way, if you do decide to train your own models, fair warning, that is a very deep rabbit hole. And you don't have to go there yet. If you really decide to go there, that's fine. But make sure that you bring scuba equipment, okay? The other thing that is much easier to implement and that may be more appropriate for your use case is retrieval augmented generation. RAG, I hate that acronym. Can we obfuscate this further, please? Anyway, retrieval augmented generation means that you have a stack of data and or files that are in a warehouse, and then here's the data, here's the LLM, here's you or your users. The users interact with the LLM interacts with the data, so you are leveraging an LLM to perform the interrogation of the data to extract meaningful and relevant, hopefully, information out of whatever your data stack is. Security concerns. I work for a cybersecurity company, so of course I'm aware of it. Hackers. Any hackers in the room? Nah. Okay, hackers are always going to go, oh, I want to jailbreak it. Oh, I want to do prompt injection. Fine, knock yourselves out. I'm more concerned about data leakage and privacy risks, and that isn't necessarily a hacking issue. We do have all the usual suspects when implementing APIs, but you know, if somebody really wants to go after a treasure trove, imagine pulling the entire database from OpenAI for every chat that they have. A hacker only needs an hour or less to pull down lots and lots of data. You know this. There's also model bias and model poisoning. We are seeing a huge uptick. Sorry for stay-rented lips. We're seeing a huge uptick in the cybersecurity field with poisoned models. And that means that they have code embedded in them, they have not so friendly content that have been fed to them. Social engineering automation has improved phishing competitions, engagements, whatever. It used to be easy to spot a fish, right? Typos, language things, not so easy now because the hackers, the bad hackers, are using LLMs to generate their phishing email content. So, moving on, more important stuff. Components on how to build a local LLM. You're going to need hardware. Probably not as much as you think. GPUs will speed processing, absolutely true, but they're not 100% necessary if you're just using an LLM. If you're training your own models, yeah, get the GPUs, trust me. You're also going to need RAM and disk space. Now, most people think RAM stands for random access memory. No, it stands for rarely adequate memory. And you're going to need the disk space because a lot of these models are huge, gigabytes. Maybe 5, maybe 10, maybe 40, maybe 70. That will chew up your disk fast, especially if you've got more than one. You're also going to need software. The software is going to determine your user interface, it's going to determine UI model management, and it's going to determine a lot of other capabilities. Some popular local LLM software options, Olama, Misty, LM Studio. I haven't used GPT-4all, but what I've read and seen from other people has also been very positive. We'll talk more about these a little bit later. Finally, you've got the model itself. The model is the data, and it may be an open source or a proprietary model. Hugging Face, Mistral, Llama, all the others are where you'll get these, and we will be talking some more about them, and those are some popular model names that you probably will recognize. I did say you don't absolutely need GPUs for using an LLM, but they will make the ride a lot smoother. Here are some things. I am not going to go through every single one of these options. When it comes to GPUs, NVIDIA has the effective corner on the market. Their GPUs are best for AI workloads. They're coming out with new versions. My system at home, I've got an RTX 4080 with 24 gigs of VRAM, and I can do an awful lot with that I couldn't do with my old rig. But if you want to do some serious model training, you're probably going to want to have multiple GPUs, and maybe it can get expensive fast. And basically, I've got it, let's see, for the NVIDIAs, the RTXs, the smaller the number, the older, the less powerful. I think the 5000 series are out now. The A100s, that's where you're getting enterprise, and of course, the H100s, that's where you're living the lifestyle of the rich and shameless. AMD does have options available, but they're not as good, they're not as powerful. The software that they're using, ROCm, which is Radeon Open Compute, that's AMD's open source GPU computing platform, but it's not quite as good as CUDA, which is NVIDIA's proprietary, and CUDA stands for Compute Unified Device Architecture. Man, these people really need to get better at naming their stuff. Okay, Ollama is very popular software. It uses a command line interface. You can tie it to a web GUI, and there are a lot of open source options available. Go to GitHub, check it out. The Ollama GitHub will provide you a lot of positive suggestions. Ollama is open source. It uses the MIT license. It's usable on Linux, Mac, Windows, and Docker. It has active communities on Discord and on Reddit, and it pulls models from the Ollama repo. Now, the nice thing about starting with Ollama, if you are just getting started with local LLMs, Ollama is a good place to start because their data models get vetted. You're pulling it from Ollama. They've had a little more supervision before you're accessing them, so it's a little bit more of a security blanket. Another wonderful option that the more I use it, the more I love it, is Misty. Misty is a graphic user interface. It's developed and maintained by CloudStack. It's free for personal or nonprofit use, but the paid commercial license does give you some additional functionality. And it's usable on Linux, Mac, Windows, active communities on Discord and Reddit. You can pull models from Ollama or from Hugging Face, and it can also take APIs from OpenAI, Claude, Google, Perplexity, and more. The thing that I love most about Misty is that if I want to compare the performance of more than one model using the exact same prompt, the exact same files, I can do it. What I have shown here is, it's hard to read on this slide, but the prompt is, what is AI? And I've got it in Phi and in one of Meta's, and I can compare the performance of both of those models from the exact same input at the same time. So if you're going to get into tweaking models and you want to be able to compare contrast, check out Misty. It's a wonderful tool. And I learned about it not only from reading about it, but several people who've attended other talks told me about it, and oh my God, it's just the bee's knees. Now, LM Studio is also good. If you're a little bit more tech savvy, this may be a good option for you. It has both GUI and CLI or headless options, developed by Element Labs, limited license for personal, non-commercial use, also usable Linux, Mac, Windows. Their active community is on Discord. They pull their models from Hugging Face, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about Hugging Face in a moment. It also has native RAG features. So, and again, if you're going to get into this, I suggest going with RAG before you start training your own models, if only just to make sure that your hair doesn't go totally white or fall out completely. There are so many other options. It's really amazing how many people, wonderful, brilliant people, are contributing to this space. So if you hear about something that you like, let me know and I can add it to this presentation, to this stack. Come on, wake up. Oh. Come on. There we go. All right. Choosing an LLM model. There are some naming conventions you should be aware of. First, you'll have the base name, version number, parameter count. The parameter counts are always in billions or trillions. The training type is also involved. Common ones are going to be base, chat, or instruct. Now, and there may be other modifiers depending on who you're getting these from. For example, Mistral 7B instruct means that it was developed by Mistral AI. It has 7 billion parameters, and it's fine-tuned for following instructions. An instruct model is not one you're going to have a conversation with. It's more of a one-shot. You send a question, you get a response. There's zero memory retention from one prompt to the next. If you want to have a conversation, use a chat model. And Ollama and Hugging Face. Here's Ollama, very clean website. When you go in and look for the models, you can search. So if I searched here for code, and then all of a sudden I'm just getting code-focused models. If there is a specific coding language that is your jam, you will probably find models out there that can help you with that if you're going local. Once you drill down into those individual descriptions, you get all the metadata, and you also get a nice one-line command that will tell you how to run the model. Hugging Face is the other big player in the model sphere. When I first started doing versions of this presentation, wow, it's really hard to see, but I counted 1.485 million different models, not data sets, not training data, just models. And that was months ago. So once I went in and I used Python as my search, it went down to only 1,700 and change. So there are lots and lots and lots of models. Anyone can create an account, modify a model, create their own model from scratch, upload it. Buyer beware. Use the same kind of caution and discretion that you use with GitHub or anything else when you're downloading a model from Hugging Face. But also know there's lots of wonderful stuff there. So I encourage you to explore, but be safe. And with that, we are now at demo time. Assuming that my computer will play well. Okay. Yes. Well, I learned my lesson. I now pre-record all of my demos. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One is because it gives me control. I don't have to worry about Wi-Fi, but also I can do some creative editing. Oh, come on. There we go. All right, so here we are. We're at the Ollama page. Very easy to see where to go to figure out how to download it and install it. I'm going to do the Linux demo. This was done on a WSL instance. I used to be so against WSL, and I've learned my lesson. You can also copy the curl command. And before you diss me for using a curl command to download and run a shell script, come on, you've done the same thing from GitHub using more than one script, so don't harsh me. And, easy, copy, paste, had to install the password or paste the password. And now this is another reason why I pre-record my demos, rather than have you wait through the entire download process. And install complete, woohoo! Now I immediately went and I typed Ollama to run it, and yep, it said, yay, it's installed. Now, Olama list everything you got. Whoops! What happened? Working on WSL, I have to have the Olama service running. I have to launch it either programmatically or manually. If you're using a Linux or a Mac OS, you probably won't have this issue. But if you do, it's easy. You just open a new shell window, run the service, and you're golden. And boom. Great. New install, no models. Let's fix that. So going into the models part of the Olama website, lots and lots of options. And you can see by the number of options, some models will have 2, 3, 4 flavors. Llama 3.3, oh my God, 70 billion parameters. Yeah, even though I have 24 gigs of VRAM and 96 gigs of regular RAM, I still can't run that file. So for this demo, I went to 3.2. The high end is only 3 billion parameters. Only, she says. And copy pasting the command. When you first run if I were to run Llama 3, it would have pulled and immediately launched the model. I didn't want to do that, I just wanted to pull it. So instead of Olama run, I did Olama pull. So now I can see it coming in and it's getting all the dependencies. Yay, success, woohoo. And now I have a model loaded in and I'm ready for bear. Now I did go and pull a couple of other models because I like having more than one book in my library. I'm just that way. Now we get to have some fun. So for the purpose of this demo, I got 3 different models, different sizes, different numbers of parameters. Start off, Olama run Phi4. Phi is by Mickeysoft. It's a nice, easy to use. It's a lightweight, but computational, easy to use model. And of course, what would a demo be without having your geek jokes? What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? Haha, good answer. So Phi did fairly well. And one of the things that I have found is that models that have larger numbers of parameters have a better grasp of pop culture references. You gotta remember, when you're dealing with a large language model, it only knows what it has been taught. And that's the data that we have fed into it. And if you're downloading models, there's always going to be at least a 1 month and probably a multiple month delay from when they finished importing the data and finished the training. Now switching over to Mistral, same prompt, same question. And the response is comparable but different. Again, this is where Misty is wonderful because you can do the compare contrast in one step. /? Will get you your help for other commands that are available. So I can go show what? Info, license, what the model file is, what parameters it has. You can explore this on your own time. I'm not going to go really deep into it, but I simply wanted you to show how you can use built-in help to be able to do more. And it would help if I could type. So Olama is available on GitHub as well. Lots of nice things, and you scroll down and, all right, quit doing the neighborhood tour. I recorded this months ago. All right, so scrolling down past all the files, here we are, the download stuff. Linux command, Docker image, lots and lots of options. You keep going down further, and it gives you the quick start. What we're looking for, and we'll get to eventually, is the instructions on how to use Ollama to customize a third-party model that you have downloaded. And believe me, it is stupid simple to do. Scroll down a little bit more. So the method that I used for this demo is Ollama create example TAC-F, meaning I'm going to use a file that has instructions, and then the name of the model file instructions. And they have an example a little bit further down in this template from Llama 3.2. So where are you starting from? And then first thing is the temperature parameter. The temperature parameter determines how creative the model is going to behave. Creatively, the model is going to behave. It's a range from 0 to 1, not a Boolean. It's a range. Most of the people that I know find that 0.7 works fairly well. If you're dealing with actuaries, you probably want to keep it down like 0.1, maybe 0.01. Nobody here has ever worked with actuaries? Oh well. Next is system, and that's where you get the actual instructions. They use Mario. I didn't use Mario because Mario isn't my jam, but it really is that simple. Now, this is where your prompt engineering and understanding what you want to create is going to be most necessary, because when you create these model files, that's where you're setting up the environment, the persona that this new model you're creating is going to have. So showing what I created, Llama 3.2 is my starting point. I left the temperature maxed out at 1. The prompt, you are Daffy Duck from Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies, answer as Daffy only. Here's a prompt, Ollama, create the name of the model, the new model that you are creating, TAC-F, because you're going to pull the instructions in from a file, and then the name of that file. Boom. And that's before I did the upgrade to 96 gigs of RAM. And now running it is the same. Ollama run Daffy. Hi, how are you? Simple, easy test. And when you read the response, it's responding in Daffy's voice. Again, the larger the number of parameters, the more pulp culture standard it's going to be, but you can train it and you can narrow what its focus is. If you wanted to create a model that spoke only as Spock, you could use this exact thing. But you can do so much more. I gave my Daffy model one line, basically 2 sentences, to define its personality. The next one that I'm going to show you, Quizmaker, has much more going on. And I need to scroll back up. Now, this is where your prompt engineering skills aren't nice to have, they're necessary to have. Because you need to be able to define as clearly as possible what you want the model to do, what persona you want it to have, what it considers to be important, valuable, what kind of output it's going to do. So in this case, still using Llama 3.2, still using a temperature of 1, but I'm using a pattern from Daniel Miesler's Fabric project. If you're not familiar with Daniel Miesler's Fabric, you should familiarize yourself, if only for the patterns. The patterns are a master class in prompt engineering. And I have no idea how many dozens of patterns there are now. So many wonderful, brilliant contributions to it. All of the patterns live in a system markdown file. First, you say, what is the identity and purpose? What are the steps you want the model to take when answering a question? Do you have an example that you want the model to emulate in its responses? What voice do you want it to use? Do you want it to be friendly? Do you want it to be comedic? Do you want it to be formal? Do you want it to be dry and academic? Do you want it to create recipes that are designed for engineers that have everything in Kelvin and micrograms? How do you want this model to behave? You can be as detailed, OCD, knock yourselves out, because the more you define this, the more you're going to get the kinds of results you want. So this is the pattern that I shamelessly stole for the purposes of this demo. So, you're an expert on this subject, defined in the input section provided below. The goal is to generate questions for a student. Here's how I want the answers to be formatted. And now we're back into my model. And at the bottom, I've got Olama. I'm modifying the path. So create quiz maker, TAC F, the path and file name of the markdown file that I'm using for the configuration. And now we're going to run it. Make a quiz with 3 questions about the astronomy of the solar system. Okay? The students taking the quiz will be elementary school. 5th grade. I forgot how specific I was. All right, so that's a very clear set of instructions. I want 3 astronomy questions having to do with the solar system, and they have to be appropriate for 5th graders. I also added a request to have it provide the answers after the questions. It didn't quite do that, but these questions are perfectly appropriate for a 5th grade class. What's the largest planet in our solar system? And 4 options. Which planet is closest to the sun? 4 options. What's the farthest planet from the sun? And none of those options, well, okay, I guess they are accurate. So because Llama 3 is a chat model, I was able to interrogate it and get the answers that it didn't provide me the first time around. So obviously I would need to tweak my model file a little bit to get better responses, but still, this is pretty slick. And that's just using the data that's already baked into the Mistral model. So, different use case. Make a quiz with 3 questions about astronomy and the solar system, only this was for college, I think sophomores, I said. And this is much more intense. So it's talking about mechanisms by which the solar system formed. What type of asteroid is thought to be at the remains of a meteor crater? All that. Now, could I have done the same type of thing just by dropping that huge long prompt into a chat window? Absolutely. But if I want to create a model that does that stuff automatically, then it's just so much easier to customize a model. And some of my coworkers like to diss me because I set up these demos with frivolous content, but all they are is proofs of concept. You know the points of pain that you have. You know the use cases that you have. All I wanted to do is show you in a very real and demonstrable and recognizable manner how easy it is to change the personas of these models when you're working with them locally. And it really is that simple. The key, however, when you're doing this kind of customization is to be able to set the stage to help your model know what is its backstory, what are your expectations as a supervisor. Think of it that you are the supervisor and your LLM is an intern. You have to get, interns and teenagers, you got to give them very clear instructions. They're still going to mess up. That's a given. But the better and more clear you can be about the instructions that you give to the LLMs in the prompt engineering, in that model configuration file, the better the results are going to be, and the less you're going to wind up losing hair or having it go just totally stark, whatever. So, key takeaways that I want you to have from today. Local LLMs are not hard to set up and install. You don't need to have a massive, deep thought or Whopper style supercomputer to do amazing stuff. You can do this whether you're an individual or an organization. Now, let's say, for example, that you are doing something for a local nonprofit that is helping homeless citizens or unhomed. I can never keep track of what the current politically correct phrasing is, but people who don't have a permanent address. And maybe the region is predominantly black or of some other non-white flavor. And you want to customize a model that your counselors are using. You can help provide a custom model, a custom chatbot, so that maybe they can get answers more quickly. Is it going to occasionally hork up a furball? Absolutely. And that's part of training the users. However, it's getting better. The evolution is so incredibly fast. And you can customize the tools to meet your use cases so easily. It's just astonishing. And I've barely scratched the surface. Customization increases relevance, return of investment. RAG lets you negotiate with your data stack. And now, I didn't get a chance to add it into this, a lot of tools are allowing people to use LLMs to interrogate their Obsidian data stacks. Anyone here use Obsidian? Okay, if you use Obsidian and you've got a lot of documentation, knowledge base, whatever, you can now use that in a RAG mode. You can use PDFs, you can use whatever. There's lots of, it just has to have the appropriate text. It has to be accessible text. And you can just do so much. Bottom line, knowledge is power. Artificial intelligence, large language models, they're here to stay. The genie's out of the bottle, and it's not going to go back in. And I want you to be able to meet that, to harness the possibilities as best as possible, and this is how easy it is to get a foot into that door. That's it. That's what I got. And I have time to spare. Oh my God. Yes, sir. Question. So the question is, what are my news sources to try and stay on top? Emphasis on the word try. MIT has their technology review, and they have several newsletters that are specifically focused on AI. Also, it's not DeepSeek, it's Deep AI. Andrew, thank you. DeepLearning.ai, another wonderful resource. Daniel Miesler is another one. Yes, excellent. TLDR. So there are a lot of wonderful resources. What I will probably do in sometime this week, maybe even over the weekend, because I actually do get Monday off. It's weird. I will try to post something on LinkedIn that has, these are the AI-related newsletters that I follow. Take what you like and leave the rest. Thank you. Next question. You, sir. So how deep an LLM do I need for doing RAG? Oh, pulling from Obsidian. Okay. The beauty of using an LLM and a RAG scenario is that you require less on the LLM side and more in terms of the data. So the advantage of having the data all baked into a single model is that you have a single container that has the persona and the data and the tokens and all that baked into a single set of files, which is the model itself. But if you're using RAG, where you have your data warehouse, your data stack, whatever, you no longer have to have all of that in your LLM, so you can fly with a much lighter LLM, because all it is doing is acting as interpreter between the user and the data. However, that's where the support software for the LLM becomes more important, because that's going to help determine how good it is. Now, will you get better results using a larger LLM model to do the interrogation of a RAG stack? I don't know, but I believe that the answer would be yes. However, because we're talking about local systems, we're talking about systems that might be set up on a kiosk or something else, or used out in the field on a laptop. So the beauty of using a RAG stack is that you don't need to have as much in terms of the model itself or the support system in terms of system resources to do the interaction with that model, because the size of the model does impact what your system resource needs are. So like I said, I have at home an MSI rig with Threadripper and the 24 gigs of VRAM, and I upgraded it to 96 gigs of regular RAM. I cannot run a 70 billion parameter model. It's still too big for my system. I would have to have either another GPU card or a more powerful one in order to achieve that. But I can do an awful lot with what I've got. And I've seen people do amazing things with a MacBook or with Linux mounted on bare metal. Just because, again, you're using the LLM as your interrogator and interpreter. It doesn't need to have all the data. It's just being the go-between. Excellent question. And we have a few minutes more. You. Yes, you. One of the, I believe that Olama, because Olama is a text CLI, it's only going to be dealing with LLMs. However, Hugging Face has raw data sets, many different kinds of models. So you can have LLM models, you can have computer vision models, you can have NLP models, you can, or LNP, I always get the letters mixed around. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. But you have many more different kinds of things at Hugging Face that are available. But again, be cautious. If you have any concerns, download it and run it in a VM or a Docker instance first. All right, next question. You, sir. So the question is, in the demo, which I recorded in advance, were the responses edited to compress? For this demo video, the responses were real time. I have recorded other demos that I was using other systems, and because the system resources on those other systems were not as robust, it was ka-chung, ka-chung, ka-chung. Those I compressed. But that was real time, and that was when I only had 32 gigs of RAM. So now it's a little bit snappier in the step, but still a good gaming rig. You can do so much. Other questions? All right, we're at 1:54. Oh, you had another question? Ah. So the question is, do I have a standard prompt that I use to interrogate a model that I don't know much about? I actually do, and I use it with ChatGPT, custom GPTs all the time. Tell me about yourself. Okay. And just to piggyback on what you said, one of the things that I really cannot express how much I have fallen in love with Misty as an application. You can collect, they actually provide you with a prompt library, and you can create and add your own prompts to your prompt library. And you can set up a conversation that uses prompts from your prompt library that will be loaded automatically when you load that particular conversation. So another wonderful thing. But hey, I use Sublime Text, and I have Markdown files, and copy paste is something that everybody uses, right? Lots of ways to do that. But that is another cool thing. But so yeah, prompt libraries, Misty, way to go. Okay, it is now 4 minutes before the hour. You've been wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm here all day. And the slide stack has already been uploaded to LinkedIn, and I will happily, like I said, I will try and get those newsletter references posted to LinkedIn sometime within the next 3 to 5 days.